Thank you so much, Annie, and hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, basis where you are. In fact, I had the privilege of joining a bit early and listening to this absolutely fantastic discussion on healthcare. Absolutely, very, very nice, and it was wonderful to hear the panelists. I will be talking about private networks, and in fact, I just see a question in the Q&A, which is, asking us to what's the difference between 4G and 5G. So I just hope that, and in my, the thoughts which I have and what I'm going to talk about today, at least convinces of some value of where private networks with 5G, of course, shall, create some difference with respect to how industries can leverage it. So the topic says strictly private. So let me just, talk about what is it. So, we all know that 5G, the whole development of this technology has been done keeping the industry needs at mind. I think consumers have benefited immensely from mobile connectivity over nearly a decade or more. We've seen 2G, 3G, 4G, and it's really literally changed the way we live and the way we kind of use digital communications and content. So 5G kind of ushers in the possibility of leveraging the same powerful connectivity into the industrial world. So as part of the development of the 5G technology for Industry 4.0, it is the 5G non-public networks, or what is actually called as the private networks, which are one of the distinct 5G enablers. And in 3GPP release 16, there's a definition given for NPN. It's one of the work items which has been defined by 3GPP. It is basically a standalone non-public network, and whereas it could also be a public network integrated with a non-public network, so which effectively means a hybrid, which is basically a public and a private, both kind of interconnected and integrated and working together. We also then have global industry forums and global, standards organizations, the likes of 5G, ACIA, and GSMA, which have actually further released white papers and research papers. The one from 5G ACIA describes different deployment scenarios, in fact, 4 different deployment scenarios of 5G non-public networks. And then we have, an interesting, paper from GSMA, which provides a guide with respect to dedicated 5G networks, and specifically, for Industry 4.0 in the manufacturing, production, and supply chain operations. So what are the different deployment scenarios with 5G? General public networks, something I think which we all have been using. Public network with SLAs, globally, a lot of telecom providers have started on this, and specifically when it comes to enterprises, SLAs or services with SLAs is what is there. The new capability which we are talking about of network slicing, again, where the entire mobile network, the public network, is kind of sliced, and then you could have different QoSs and different performances for each slice. Then, of course, the other setup of public network with local infra, where you could actually have a dedicated radio equipment, deployed in your site. In fact, even with a local breakout, and obviously done by a mobile network operator, but something which would be captive for you, but then still enabled by a mobile network operator. But then there comes 2 private network deployments. One is a pure standalone private network, where the spectrum is provided by the operator. And this, again, is a kind of, I would say, a mandatory requirement in many countries, where the spectrum is only available with the mobile operators. But we also have many countries where private spectrum is available, or we have private network solutions in the unlicensed band, and which is the next option, where you have standalone private networks using unlicensed or private spectrum. So these are the different deployments where enterprises can actually deploy, a 5G solution and then use it. And then again, I will be talking about, the different needs which warrant and then which kind of the enterprises would look at while deciding which solution to take. But then now that we've understood that, yes, there are solutions possible with 5G, and, the standards and the technology is developing, making this possible. Let's just, look at what is the voice of the customer. What is it that the industry clients are thinking and saying? What is it that they prefer? So Capgemini earlier this year did a global market research. We in fact surveyed and interviewed and spoke to 1,000 industrial organizations, CXOs from 1,000 industrial organizations who have adopted or are planning to adopt 5G. And in that, you see that 35% people globally are actually preferring to deploy private 5G networks. And what is also very interesting to see is that this preference is not limited to any one industry vertical. Be it high tech, be it aerospace, be it manufacturing, be it transport hubs, ports, automotives, be it any industry sector, you kind of see a uniform preference of private networks. And this is a substantial figure where nearly, 1/3, in fact, more than 1/3 of the industry clients prefer private networks. So there's definitely an interest, and then there's definitely a need. So the next slide is exactly talking about that. What are exactly the industry needs, which kind of make them prefer private networks, and specifically standalone or dedicated private networks? First, of course, when you have something which is dedicated for you and completely in your campus, in your premises, it certainly gives you high reliability and availability. You definitely have, much more control, and then, you can, the performance of that can much easily be assured and monitored. The second very big important point, the data stays local. Privacy and security, I think this is something very, very important and something which all the enterprises really look at. Low latency. So while 5G has already been talking about low latency, but then low latency actually becomes, a possibility. It actually gets implemented in these 5G private networks, and specifically, becomes much more effective or much more usable with on-prem or edge compute, because then the compute is also near, and then you do not kind of induce more latency when you transfer the heavy data into the cloud. Of course, the enterprises are always very keen on autonomy and control. So, something which is private to them and something which is captive to them naturally will give them higher autonomy and control. The moment you have a personalized or a captive or a private solution, it also makes it possible to have a lot of custom capabilities. So, be it location positioning, accurate positioning, mission critical voice data, balancing the uplink downlink, varying the uplink downlink bandwidth ratios, network slicing, segmentation within the private network for the variety of use cases. You do not want the same QoS or the same latency or the same reliability for all of your use cases. So you kind of segment the speed and the throughput available in your private network also across the different usages which you have. Of course, this is something which needs to be set up and maintained. So it has to be compact, easy in installation and management. The private network is obviously in no way comparable to the public networks, where we are all used to seeing these large, huge data centers with racks and racks of servers, because those cater to million and million of consumer mobile connections, whereas a captive campus one is with limited geographical coverage and for captive use. Of course, once you have a private solution, the coverage at multiple enterprise sites becomes a possibility. You basically just kind of replicate the same setup across your different sites. And of course, 5G is just one piece of the entire enterprise architecture. So, integration with enterprise IT, OT systems, and, connectivity being integrated with other technologies, IoT, compute, IT, OT systems like ERP, manufacturing operations systems and all. This is really necessary to take advantage, or for that matter, have the business applications use 5G, and which is where open APIs from a private network is a super critical need. Then, in addition to the industry need being there, there are some factors which are also accelerating the need and the demand for private network in industries. And then what are those? So first of all, industrial operations, be it manufacturing, mining, ports, airports, oil and gas sites, offshore, onshore, remote sites, power utility companies, large warehouses, distribution hubs. They are typically very well suited for local private networks. These are typically industrial operations in a defined area, could be remote in difficult terrain, could be open air and or could be covered, but they're typically localized and so very suitable for private networks. Then again, I'm sure everybody knows about the two technologies of 5G, the 5G NSA and the 5G SA. 5G standalone solution deployments are the low-hanging fruits with private networks. You're setting up your own greenfield private network. Start with the latest technology. Start with the 5G SA solution. You have no dependency on any 4G as an anchor. Again, you can be globally consistent across locations. Like I said, you can set up at one place. Most of the enterprises are global MNC organizations, so you can obviously bring in the global consistency. New innovative use cases which use cellular connectivity. With these new use cases, you can actually accelerate the digitization and the automation, which is already ongoing in the industrial operations. And this will basically help you unlock new opportunities. We already, previously also in the panel heard of all the new, potentially powerful use cases and disruptive use cases coming up with connected healthcare. And then also, I would like to share one key finding from, our Capgemini research, which we did a few months ago, that, again, in a survey, and it was, seen by us, and it was a strong consensus that the industrial organizations who are the early adopters of 5G have actually found 5G matching or exceeding their expectations. And also the early adopters and the industrial organizations are actually realizing higher operational efficiencies. So then it effectively means that the value and the potential of 5G is being proven. Of course, it's still early days, but then there is concrete proof, and there is a very positive feedback, which itself is a great start. So then, what does this actually mean? Are we all set for private network for industries? Next year is going to be the year of private networks. We're going to have private networks rolled out all over the world. I wish that was the case, but then yes, it's a process. There are still some challenges which needs to be overcome, and our earlier panelists actually kind of more or less spoke about these challenges, and the entire ecosystem needs to come together to work on them. And I wouldn't even call them as problems or issues. These are just things which need to be done in a planned, in a structured manner to make the 5G deployments and the 5G adoption in industries a success. So it's basically, the first one is of integrating 5G with existing enterprise networks and IT systems. That's when the industrial use cases kind of actually use 5G. So it's the applications which then, when in an end-to-end solution, 5G being a part of an end-to-end solution, actually truly utilizes the connectivity capabilities which are brought on with 5G. 5G is a new mobile connectivity being introduced in the industrial world. I mean, it needs to be assessed what kind of new vulnerabilities and security risks it creates and it exposes. So managing cybersecurity is one of the key areas which needs to be looked at. Of course, there is still, this entire ecosystem is still evolving. So there is currently a difficulty and, not so much of readily available industry vertical specific solutions. And of course, there is always this question of where is the ROI? So, you have operational efficiency, you see early benefits, but you also need to prepare for scale up. Industry vertical specific solutions need to be become more available, more mature. And of course, as the deployments kind of become more mature and more advanced, their ROIs need to be calculated to actually really prove their worth. One big challenge is that the 5G industrial devices ecosystem is still evolving. There are good positive developments already happening this year. A lot of new 5G chips being introduced by Qualcomm. So the future looks promising and bright, but this is an area which is still evolving. And then, of course, one thing which is kind of a reality, but something which is not very easy to handle, is the fact that it is a multi-vendor and a multi-ecosystem partner environment, which then needs to be orchestrated. So if we are looking at adopting 5G for industries, it will involve the devices, there will be applications, use cases, there will be platforms, there will be network infra, there will be existing enterprise IT/OT systems. They all have to be integrated, kind of stitched together into an end-to-end solution. And that's when, they kind of become usable or applicable into the, or kind of get amalgamated into the industrial operations. So just to summarize, you're basically looking at a holistic and a collaborative and experimentative approach, basically the entire ecosystem working together to solve these challenges and then realize the true potential of 5G private networks for industries. So I will end here and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Monika. That was good. We have some questions for you. One is that, do you see network slicing coming soon? To me, it seems we are far from a technology point of view to offer this commercially.
I completely agree on that. So let's understand what is network slicing. So, people who come from the communications world, we are all used to VPNs and MPLS. In very simple terms, when I have to explain it, I say network slicing is the VPN in the wireless world. It's basically, you take that big MPLS connection and you, slice it into different network slices. Network slicing is more of a public network or a macro capability, and which is where these different 5G deployments scenarios come to the rescue. You honestly don't need network slicing in private networks. In fact, most of the current 5G standalone private network solutions talk of different QoS profiles on network segmentation and not necessarily implementing network slicing. So what typically will happen as an evolution roadmap is that on one side, the private 5G standalone private networks will get deployed by enterprises, and on the other side, the telcos will work on upgrading and evolving their current 4G core to a 5G core and implementing network slicing. And very soon we will have an all 5G public and private world, and we will also have the public and the private integration.
Okay, Monika, one more question. Could I ask you to be brief? I'm sorry, but we're running slightly into break time, although I appreciate that wasn't down to you. So it sounds like private on-site 5G standalone can be employed today by enterprises, although perhaps for non-critical applications first, and then upgraded to release 16/17 quickly. Our questioner says, presumably, or does that mean that dedicated networks will be 2 to 4 years ahead of mobile operators, main national networks with slicing? And also, will that gap widen as enterprises become more experienced?
Yes and no. So, we already see trials on network slicing also happening. We already see many of the telcos already, already planning, announcing, or going for the 5G core. I think both of them will happen together. But yes, when it comes to enterprises, and specifically, like I said, many enterprises who prefer and who have a better fit for private networks, standalone and private networks will have an early deployment. In fact, the commercial availability of standalone and private network solutions is already there. And then the macros will follow. That is absolutely right.
Okay, Monika, thank you very much.